Are you in menopause and feel like you need help, but you can't find the right therapist or even the right doctor? It's getting way too common to hear women say this. For the past 3 years, I've been lucky and blessed enough to find my people, meaning my doctor, my psychiatrist, and my therapist. But for the 4 years before that, the struggle was real and very intense. So today I'm sharing the pitfalls that I faced and how you can avoid them. Because if you need help during menopause, getting help is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Only very recently I learned that the suicide rate among women is highest basically when they're in the ages between 45 and 52, which is usually when most of us are entering perimenopause and in some cases menopause. Although this statistic was a little unsettling for me, it was not shocking because I've had my own experience with it. Right in the middle of recognizing that I had a nervous breakdown, I became extremely suicidal. I mean, to the point that I was dreaming of ways to do this. And for me, it was very specific. I was like, I'm going to take myself to the sea, which kind of made sense and kind of didn't make sense because I'm a very good swimmer. But it was so, I'm going to spare you the details. But the point is that it was so intense for me that I actually had to make myself drive to the spot that I kept thinking about and stand at the sea and pray so intensely to say, please, please take this desire, this horrific desire off of me. It also helped me that I was able to talk to my friends about it, because the thing about secrets is they hate the light of day. So I allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to actually talk to my friends about it until we could actually laugh about it. Sounds funny, but it's true. One of the things that I recognize now is that when that was happening to me, I had no idea that this was actually a symptom or could be a symptom of perimenopause for many women to delve so deeply into this kind of depression because of the intensity of the hormonal changes that we're going through. I had no idea. I'll tell you the theory that I've come up with. In perimenopause, you are losing estrogen. That's when you begin to lose estrogen in your body and also from your brain. Well, for me, I recognize my brain hated losing that estrogen. And so I think some of us may have severity of symptoms depending on how our nervous system is reacting to this lowering of estrogen, especially in our brains. By the way, I realize that I have a very terrible tendency of not introducing myself in my videos. Hi, my name is Melanie Oyadina, and on this channel, I focus on menopause emotional wellness. And today's video is part 3 of a series that I'm doing on perimenopause and mental health. So as you can imagine, after I went through that whole time, it was then that I became very intense and serious about finding the right medical help. Because at that point, I was like, okay, I have a history in alternative therapies, and clearly I was not able to help myself to the extent that I wanted to be able to help myself. So now that I'm 7 years down the line, I'm first going to address the pitfalls that I mentioned at the beginning. There are, I think, 4 common frustrations and pitfalls that women in menopause can go through or tend to go through as they're getting ready to seek help because they realize that they're in some sort of mental health crisis. And then later I'm going to talk about solutions and tips that can help you to make this process of you finding the right professional help a little bit easier. There are 4 common frustrations that I know that I've experienced and I know that other people have experienced when seeking therapy or even help from a psychiatrist. The first one is, and until you've done this, it may sound weird, but it is so tiring to tell your story over and over and over again to a new person. If you've done this and you relate to that, please let me know. Although it seems like such a simple thing, there's more than one time it has stopped me from immediately going to seek help if something didn't work out with another therapist or doctor. The second one is, let's face it, it's expensive. Getting mental health is not cheap. And so you can actually find that even if you can afford it, there's almost a feeling of guilt that you are being self-indulgent by going to therapy. I don't know if that's just me. I don't think it's just me. But that has been so deep for me at times that I've actually had to speak to my therapist about it, to say, I feel so guilty coming here today when other people are just managing, and this feels very self-indulgent. And she really helped me to work it through. She listened to me, but it's not self-indulgent when you actually need help. The third frustration, and this one is ultra real, realizing after seeing someone maybe one or two times that you're just not vibing with them. You're not coming away from your sessions feeling better, or it's just not working for you. That is so frustrating, because you've told your story, you've gotten over the guilt of paying the expense, and then like the third session, something clicks in your brain and you're like, this is not working for me. And then the last common frustration that I know of is, you got a good vibe going, but then somewhere in the middle of it, you realize this person doesn't really know how to deal with menopause related mental health issues. They just don't. And I'll tell you, recently I saw a video on YouTube that was having an interview with Halle Berry. And it seems that this is something that she has brought to the Congress of the United States, to talk about the fact that a lot of doctors do not have enough training or the right training to deal with menopause related issues. And they're actually trying to get legislation passed so that this can be something that is much more understood and dealt with by the medical field. Let me tell you how you can hear the money whisking out of my bank account. I have been through 4 therapists and 3 psychiatrists before I landed on who I told you I have my people. So I'm going to share these stories with you because I want to encourage you to understand that it is worth it to keep trying, because the right people are there for you. It just might take a while to find them, but that is not a reason for you to stop. Whew, the sun has come out a lot brighter on me, but I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to share 3 of my horror stories. First one is from a psychiatrist. When I went into this man's office, I was at the lowest of my lows. By the time I left, I was lower than I ever thought I could be. Because after I poured out my soul to him, he told me, you just need to become responsible, get grown, and go deal with your life. I reeled from that for about 3 months because I was already feeling embarrassed, because I was not able to cope with life the way that I thought I should be. So that is story number 1. The other 2 stories are about therapists. Now, you would think that every therapist is a very empathetic person. No, I managed to bump into a woman that was like a robot. I'm not kidding you, like a robot. I sat in her office and felt like I was talking to a wall. However, I will say this, by the time I did leave her office, and of course I never went back, she did give me one piece of advice that helped me tremendously. Because at the time, I was having panic attacks that looked like epileptic seizures. She very pragmatically broke down to me how I could help myself to stop having them completely. And it worked. It took about 3 months, but it stopped. So she did a good thing. One of the things I took away from that is that, yes, you can go to the wrong person, but usually everybody might have even one nugget that helps you in your journey. So the second example I have was of a therapist who kind of had a program in her mind of how she helped people work through deep trauma. But she was let's get in there, let's dig it out, and let's heal it as quickly as possible. By the time I had my second session with her, I realized that couldn't work for me, because she had given me some homework assignments and I started to do them. And I was feeling so overwhelmed and I was just feeling a lot worse. And so I told her, I don't think I want to continue with you. The reason I'm telling that story was her reply to my email. She said to me, well, when you're ready to actually deal with healing, then you can come back to me. Until then, I wish you the best. Lady, could you be a little bit more caught up in yourself? I don't think so. So now we're going to move on to the tips that I believe can help to make your search for the right kind of help a little bit easier. The first one is mindset. I know, I am tired of hearing that word too, but it's actually really true. In order to go through the frustrations that I did with all the doctors that didn't work, I recognized that I had to think of my getting help as something as serious as if I needed heart surgery. Because when you're going to go into surgery, especially for a heart surgery, you want to be able to trust your doctor. You want to feel good that by the time you come out, this person will have done their absolute best. Well, it's the same thing. I made myself understand that getting help was as important as that because I was not coping on my own. So if you know that you need help, I really encourage you to shift your perspective and make it something extremely important that you get the help, because that's the only way you're going to go through the disappointment. All right, my second point is a little controversial. I've heard a lot of people say that they prefer to go to a therapist that is a part of their culture because they feel like they will be able to relate better. However, there's a little nuance to that could actually be not the best for you, because let's face it, everything that I've spoken about, whether the good, but I haven't spoken about the good yet, but the not so good therapists or the not so good psychiatrists are from my culture. I'm Black, I'm Jamaican, so were they. But here's the other thing that I know can happen. In between, I did actually have a therapist from betterhelp.com who was a white woman. And it was working well for me. It was really technical difficulties why I didn't keep up with her, me getting onto the app and so on. But the other thing I want you to be a little bit mindful of is, depending on what your issues are, you may not feel so comfortable to speak to someone from your culture if you are already judging yourself and saying, well, I shouldn't be going through this as a strong whatever woman. And so going to a therapist that's out of your culture may help you to feel a lot more willing to be completely open about every single thing that's going on with you, mentally and emotionally. I'm curious, if you've been to therapy, have you always chosen someone in your culture, or have you gone outside of your culture? And what has that been like for you? The third tip is probably the most obvious one, which is to have some dialogue with the therapist ahead of time to see if they have experience with menopause-related mental health issues. Like, are they aware of perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause symptoms that can turn up because of the changes in your hormonal levels affecting your emotional and mental health? Because if they have experience in that, then yes, it's a lot easier to start the whole process. And the fourth tip I have is trust your instincts. You know, by the time we've gotten to this stage, we're 40, 50, 60 years old. We know ourselves. So if you go to someone, let's say you go to them 2 or 3 times, and you realize it's not working for you, for whatever reason, make it okay to say, okay, thank you, but no, and I'm going to seek someone else. And that's made much easier once you've done step 1, which is to change your mindset, so that you know that, okay, this is not something I'm going to give up on until I find the right person. I have a theory about life. The moment a problem arises, the solution for it also arises. And so it's just about bridging the gap from the problem to the solution, going through whatever you need to go through until you meet the right solution for you. Finding the right people for me was a lot of prayer, a lot of luck, and a lot of asking the right questions and trusting and knowing that I was never going to give up, because I was not going to be living like this forever. Mine started with my GP, whom I trust and love dearly. He suggested the first psychiatrist that I went to. This man was awesome. However, he was like 80 years old. And within about a year of seeing him, he passed away. So then I had to move on to the doctor who was his mentee, and she's great. Totally different, but great. Then to find the right therapist, that was actually a combination of friends and doctors suggesting the right person to me. And let me tell you, with the therapist that I have now, we hit it off from day one. And that's when I was in my lowest of lows. I just knew I had found the right person, because I tend to push myself so much in my own head. I don't need a doctor that's going to push me excessively. So that's the other thing. You have to know yourself. If you need someone who's pushy, then get that. But if you don't need someone who's pushy, then step away from that. Let me tell you, this sun is kicking my butt. Why would I decide to film outside in August? I actually have a second psychiatrist. I am very excited to talk about him. I believe I'll do that in the 5th episode of the series. Because first of all, he's the one that fully diagnosed me with complex trauma. And then I've been going through a whole trial thing with him with microdosing psilocybin, which is mushrooms, taking it in capsules in small doses to sort of help heal the parts of my nervous system that were really damaged when I first got sick. Yeah, I'm so excited about that. Anyway, if you're still struggling with feeling guilty that you need help, then watch this video where I talk about why it's okay not to be okay.